Nobody announces it. That's the first thing you have to understand about real wealth. It doesn't come with a press release. It doesn't update its LinkedIn. It doesn't post the portfolio screenshot or mention the raise at dinner. It just sits there, quietly, compounding in the background while the room talks about other things. And that silence is exactly why most people can't see it. They're looking for the wrong signals. The car, the watch, the neighborhood, the confidence that comes from spending money visibly. And because they're reading those signals, they miss the actual ones. The behavioral patterns, the structural decisions, the quiet habits that separate people who are building something real from people who are performing the appearance of it. Today I'm going to give you 10 of them. Not because wealth is a competition, but because most people building it genuinely don't know they're building it. They feel behind. They compare themselves to the wrong things. They mistake the absence of visible luxury for the absence of progress. These signs exist whether you recognize them in yourself or not. Let's start. Sign 1. Your emergency fund is boring to you. Not exciting, not a source of pride, just there. Accessible, never touched. 3 to 6 months of expenses sitting in a high-yield savings account earning something real, and you genuinely don't think about it much. This is rarer than almost anyone realizes. A 2024 Bankrate survey found that 56% of Americans could not cover a $1,000 emergency from savings alone, more than half the country. Not a medical crisis, a single ordinary expense. And this number has barely moved in a decade, through bull markets, through record corporate profits, through everything. The emergency fund isn't exciting. That's the point. It's the structural layer that protects every other financial decision from being derailed by a bad month. The person without one converts temporary problems into permanent financial setbacks. You don't. That's not small. Sign 2. You automate before you think. The investment contribution leaves your account before you have the chance to decide whether you want it to. The decision was made once. Now it just runs. This is structurally one of the most powerful wealth-building habits that exists. And almost nobody talks about it in those terms because it's not impressive to describe. Research from Vanguard and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau found that automation increases long-term savings rates by over 40%. Not because the person became more disciplined, because they removed the decision entirely. And decisions made under financial stress, under market volatility, under the ordinary daily pressure of having competing priorities, those decisions are almost always wrong. The automation doesn't care what the market did today. Sign 3. You've stopped checking the market daily. There is probably a period when you did. Most investors go through it. The refresh, the portfolio check at lunch, the anxiety that lives in the gap between what the number is and what it should be. At some point, that stopped. Not because you stopped caring, because you stopped needing the market to perform on a short timeline to feel okay. Your system doesn't require that. The contributions are going in. The allocation is correct. Checking it every day adds nothing except noise. Dalbar's annual research has tracked actual investor returns versus index fund returns for decades. The average equity investor underperforms the index by 3 to 4 percentage points annually, not primarily through bad investment selection, but through emotional timing decisions. They sell when it drops. They buy when it feels safe, which is always near the top. You're not doing that. The difference compounds. Sign 4. You've had a conversation with yourself about what enough looks like. Most people never have it. The goalpost keeps moving. More income, more lifestyle, more standard, and the sense of arrival never comes because there's no destination defined. Charlie Munger spent decades building one of the most successful investment records in history. He talked often about the importance of defining sufficiency, not as a ceiling on ambition, but as an anchor against the endless expansion of desire that quietly consumes everything it touches. You've thought about it. Maybe you wrote it down. Maybe it just lives clearly somewhere in how you make decisions. But you have a number, not necessarily a specific figure, but a shape, a lifestyle that would feel like enough. And you're building toward it instead of running from the feeling of not having it yet. Sign 5. Your net worth and your lifestyle are moving in opposite directions. Your income has grown. Your lifestyle hasn't kept pace. The gap between what comes in and what your life costs to maintain has been widening. Quietly, without announcement, without anyone at dinner noticing. Federal Reserve data shows that less than half of Americans earning between $75,000 and $99,000 save any meaningful amount. The income is there. The structure to keep it is not. Every raise gets absorbed into a lifestyle recalibrated to spend everything available. Your raise didn't do that. That gap, the one between income and lifestyle, is the only place real wealth accumulates. Everything else is just a more expensive version of the same position. Sign 6. You've made a major financial decision that nobody in your life understood. Didn't upgrade the car when you could have. Stayed in the apartment instead of buying the house that would have stretched the budget. Said no to something visible when the money was technically available. Someone thought it was odd. Maybe they said so. Maybe they just implied it. John Bogle, who built the index fund model that now underlies trillions in ordinary investor wealth, spent decades being told his idea was too simple to be serious. That complexity was where real returns lived. He was patient while that argument was made loudly, then right while it compounded quietly. The decisions nobody around you understood were usually the correct ones. Sign 7. You genuinely don't know what your colleagues earn. And more importantly, you're not trying to find out. The comparison game requires a scoreboard. You've largely stopped reading it. Not because you became indifferent to progress, but because you shifted what progress means. The relevant number isn't what they make. It's whether your own allocation is working. Those are different scoreboards, and only one of them reflects anything real. The Millionaire Next Door documented this pattern across thousands of wealth accumulators. People who built significant net worth on ordinary incomes, not through superior earnings, but through sustained indifference to the visible spending of people around them. The comparison was never the point. Building was. Sign 8. Unexpected money has a destination before it arrives. The tax refund, the bonus, the small windfall. Before it lands in your account, you already know where it's going. Most people experience unexpected money as permission to spend. It's found money. It doesn't feel like part of the system. The psychology of mental accounting, first described by Richard Thaler, shows that people treat money differently based on its source. Money that arrived unexpectedly gets spent in ways regular income wouldn't. You've broken that pattern. The windfall goes into the allocation. It's not exciting. It's exactly right. Sign 9. You've held through at least one significant market decline without selling. This one is simple and almost entirely invisible from the outside. 40% gone in weeks. Every headline designed to create the feeling that this time was genuinely different, that the recovery wasn't coming, that staying in was irrational. Most investors sold. The Dalbar data is consistent across every cycle. Average investors sell near the bottom and buy near the top, converting temporary paper losses into permanent realized ones. You held. You didn't celebrate it. You just didn't touch it. And the market, as it always has across every 30-year window in its history, recovered. That single non-decision was worth more than most active investment strategies produce in a decade. Sign 10. The people who look most financially comfortable around you are not necessarily building anything. You already know this. Maybe you figured it out recently. Maybe you knew it intuitively for years. The truck is financed over 72 months. The renovation was a home equity line. The confidence comes from spending at the edge of what's available, not from the distance between income and obligation. Net worth is invisible. Debt is invisible. Spending is visible. And American consumer culture has spent decades optimizing for visible signals at the direct expense of actual accumulation. The person who looks most ahead in the room is often the most leveraged. The person who says nothing and drives the older car may have more liquid invested than anyone at the table will ever know. You've stopped reading visible signals as financial data. That shift from appearances to mechanics is one of the clearest signs that you understand how this actually works. And understanding how it works is where building it begins.